Hello, and welcome to Steve Jobs' Lesson 10, Summarizing Letters of Wilbur Wright. In the previous lesson, we integrated information from 3 texts to compare their central ideas. You were expected to write a paragraph summarizing the ideas of failure from the 3 previous texts. Today, we will read the Letters of Wilbur Wright by Wilbur Wright, and we will also summarize the text. For this lesson, you will need Letters of Wilbur Wright by Wilbur Wright, the summarizing handout found in today's lesson, and your reading log or reading response journal. I'm going to read this description of the Wright brothers aloud. Like Jobs, the Orville brothers faced failure as a platform to success. As I read, begin to craft a description of the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers, Orville, who lived from 1871 to 1948, and Wilbur, who lived from 1867 to 1912, were 2 American brothers, inventors, and aviation pioneers who are credited with inventing and building the world's first successful airplane. They made the first successful sustained flight on December 17, 1903. The brothers were self-taught engineers who experimented for years in the midst of skepticism and criticism from the engineering community. As you read, find evidence to answer this question. What made the Wright brothers succeed? We're now going to read the Letters of Wilbur Wright. I'm going to read out loud, and I need you to follow along with me. Wilbur Wright to the Smithsonian Institution, May 30th, 1899. Dear Sirs, I have been interested in the problem of mechanical and human flight ever since I was a boy. I constructed a number of bats of various sizes after the story of Cayley's and Pinod's machines. My observations since have only convinced me more firmly that human flight is possible and practicable. It is only a question of knowledge and skill, just as in all acrobatic feats. Birds are the most perfectly trained gymnasts in the world and are specially well fitted for their work, and it may be that man will never be equal to them, but no one who has watched a bird chasing an insect or another bird can doubt the feats are performed which require 3 or 4 times the effort required in ordinary flight. I believe that simply flight is at least possible to man, that the experiments and investigations of a large number of independent workers will result in the accumulation of information, knowledge, and skill which will finally lead to accomplished flight. Wilbur Wright to his father, September 3, 1900. I have my machine nearly finished. It is not to have a motor and is not expected to fly any true sense of the word. My idea is merely to experiment and practice with a view to solving the problem of equilibrium. I have plans which I hope to find much in advance of the methods tried by previous experimenters. When once a machine is under proper control under all conditions, the motor problem will be quickly solved. A failure of motor will then simply mean a slow descent and safe landing instead of a disastrous fall. In my experiments, I do not expect to rise many feet from the ground, and in case I am upset, there is nothing but soft sand to strike on. I do not intend to take dangerous chances, both because I have no wish to get hurt and because a fall would stop by experimenting, which I would not like at all. The man who wishes to keep at the problem long enough to really learn anything positively cannot take dangerous risks. Carelessness and overconfidence are usually more dangerous than deliberately accepted risks. I am constructing my machine to sustain about 5 times my weight and am testing every piece. I think there is no possible chance of its breaking while in the air. If it is broken, it will be by awkward landing. Wilbur Wright to his father, October 4th, 1903. We have increased our time and length of flight with glider to 43 seconds, which is 1 2/3 over last year's record and about 3 times the best of anyone else. We will soon have it up to more than a minute as we are now able to remain practically stationary when a suitable wind blows up a good slope. This is something former experimenters were entirely unable to accomplish. Wilbur Wright to his family, December 14th, 1903, discussing his plan with an engine. We gave machine first trial today with only partial success. The wind was only about 5 miles an hour, so we anticipated difficulty in getting speed enough on our short track, 60 feet, to lift. We took to the hill and after tossing for a first whack, which I won, got ready for the start. The wind was a little to one side and the track was not exactly straight downhill, which caused the start to be more difficult than it would have otherwise been. However, the real trouble was an error in judgment in turning up too suddenly after leaving the track, and as the machine had barely enough speed for support already, this slowed it down so much that before I could correct the error, the machine began to come down, though turned up at a big angle. Toward the end, it began to speed up again, but it was too late, and it struck the ground while moving a little to one side, due to wind and a rather bad start. A few sticks in the front rudder were broken, which will take a day or two to repair probably. It was a nice, easy landing for the operator. The machinery all works in an entirely satisfactory manner and seems reliable. The power is ample, but for a trifling error due to a lack of experience with the machine and this method of starting, the machine would have undoubtedly have flown beautifully. There is now no question of final success. The strength of the machine is all right, the trouble in the front rudder being easily remedied. We anticipate no further trouble in landings. We'll probably have made another trial before you receive this unless weather is unfavorable. Note: December 17, 1903, the Wright Brothers flew their machine for 59 seconds, covering 852 feet. This was considered the first successful sustained airplane flight in history. The brothers continued to improve their airplane designs and eventually incorporated the Wright Company in 1909. Carelessness and overconfidence are usually more dangerous than deliberately accepted risks. What I need for you to do is I need for you to open up your reading response journal and complete the sentence stem. The word phrase deliberately means, and the sentence means. You will have about 5 minutes to complete this part. Follow along as I read the first letter. Dear Sirs, I have been interested in the problem of mechanical and human flights ever since as a boy I constructed a number of bats of various sizes after the story of Cayley and Pinod's machines. Wilbur Wright has been interested in flight ever since he was a small boy. My observations since have only convinced me more firmly that human flight is possible and practicable. It is only a question of knowledge and skill, just as in all acrobatic feats. He seems very focused on the idea that humans should be able to fly if they can just figure out how. Birds are the most perfectly trained gymnasts in the world and are especially well fitted for their work, and it may have been that man will never equal them, but no one else who has watched a bird chasing an insect or another bird can doubt the feats are performed which require 3 or 4 times the effort required in ordinary flight. Wilbur Wright seems to have made a lot of specific observations and paid close attention to watching creatures fly. I believe that simply flight at least is possible to man, that the experiments and investigations of a large number of independent workers will result in the accumulation of information and knowledge and skill which will finally lead to accomplished flight. Wilbur Wright explains his lifelong interest of human flight. He feels it will be possible for humans to fly, but that it will take many people with his interest to figure it out. Based on what you heard me say, I want you to go ahead and summarize the first letter on your summarizing handout. You will have about 5 minutes to do so. Now you're going to reread the other 3 letters from the text and complete the summary handout. Remember that when you write a summary, you should identify the main ideas of each section. Then you should begin the summary with an introductory statement, write down the main ideas in sentences, adding details when necessary, use transition words between the sentences, and then proofread the summary. You will have about 18 minutes to complete this assignment. Now let's summarize the entire text. You have just read and summarized each letter from Letters of Wilbur Wright. In your reading response journal, determine the central idea of Letters of Wilbur Wright and explain how each letter conveys the central idea. You will have about 10 minutes to complete this assignment. If you don't finish in the 10 minutes, it will be for homework. I'm going to go ahead and close out this lesson. Congratulations! You have completed Lesson 10 of the Steve Jobs unit. In this lesson, you read and summarized the Letters of Wilbur Wright by Wilbur Wright. You also determined the central idea of the text and explained how each letter conveys the central idea.